Right, hello, welcome to the Sisyphus Complex Solution. This is episode 186 and it's titled DIE. You know what I'm getting at, and obviously it will become apparent as to precisely what it means. The particular screenshot that I've got this week is actually from that sort of the AI Christmas song that I put up on Christmas Day. It just seemed like an appropriate picture to use on this occasion. Like I say, it'll become apparent as to what I'm referring to when the time comes. I am also going to say that I should say Happy New Year to you, and I'll have a quick drink to that. And the drink is actually pertinent as well, and it really is a nice drop. It's actually a Portuguese wine that I finally managed to find. I do like Portuguese wine. Relevance to Portugal that will come up a little bit later on. So, getting back into, initially I'm going to do the process stage, and then I've got a couple of words to refer to on the back end. So let's move straight into the process part of things. And so this week I'm dealing with the Defence Sixth Form College, which was established in 1953. It was more formally known as the Welbeck Defence Sixth Form College, but apparently this was closed on July the 3rd of 2021. So that means it comes into the audit simply because it did exist when the benchmark period initiated of 2019 to 20. So that's the reason why I've taken a look at it. Once again, there are no annual reports and accounts available for this, despite the fact that even if they had been produced, they should still be available. And so the information for the 2 years that I would have covered in the audit, I can essentially base some fundamentals of information from what I can find from things like old Wankipedia. And so from there I can establish that they have they had claimed a cost of 200,000 per student that had managed to complete the 2-year period, and then they're claiming then in addition to that 53% of the students actually met that criteria. And then I can understand that according to 2018 numbers, there's 309 students that were at this academy, and so that basically means the calculation works out at 163.77 times 200k and dividing it over 2 years. So the figure on the screen is a taxpayer burden of 16,377,000. That is then put into the model that I'm creating for the 2 pertinent years. I can't determine staff levels or anything like that precisely. The only information that I could see was that it was anywhere between like 250 and 500. That's a bit of a wide spread there. I don't think it's at the higher end, just simply based on the numbers according to the limited information that I can get. But at least there's enough there and that for me to be able to get some kind of an understanding. I dare say it was probably something like around about the 350. But again, purely speculation, and so I'm not really narrowing down to try to claim any sort of precise figures around that. I suppose the amusing part of this has some, I mean, if amusing is the right word, some relevance to the current activities. So if you notice on the screen details, this particular school, academy, whatever, it was there for 16 to 18-year-olds. Obviously military-based training and that, but more on the kind of like the engineering side of things. But It started accepting girls into the college from 2004 because Tony Blair is a retard. It then changed location in 2005. So you start accepting the girls in 2004, you move the location in 2005 at this really rather plush, relatively plush location actually, in Loughborough. And it took 16 years for the stupidity of opening the school up to girls to destroy the school. So you had 51 years of this operating perfectly fine, training boys to be military men, and then they let in the feminism and it gets shut down within 16 years by a woman who claimed that it doesn't present value for money because not enough of the little darlings could cope with 2 years. Feminism, eh? But the ideology side of things and that, and the impacts and consequences of the ideology is kind of the theme here. I also found it a bit ridiculous that they wanted to try and make this a STEM qualification, or they were trying to rebrand it as a STEM qualification. I'm assuming that this is just to make up fake numbers on that. But just because you've done a couple of years in engineering and that at a college like this wouldn't make for an actual STEM qualification. So why the amusement now, really? Well, would you like to spend your gap year defending my plans to destroy the nation? Said Keir Starmer. Good luck with that, fella. So you closed down college. You've had colleges closed down because the little darlings can't cope with it anymore, and now you want to turn around and run a gap year. For God's sake. I did see one report that suggested that they hope to get about 1,200 gullible idiots in the first year. And quite frankly, to turn around and say that you're expecting 1,200, that's exactly a very good indication of what a sad state of affairs this all is. I mean, this is an absolute farce. Skills for future careers. That's probably the most insulting of all, considering this is for an age group where only 53% of them can find work. But then that's how they think that you can probably suck the youngsters into the meat grinder, because they're saying, well, you know, we're destroying everything around you and that you won't have any other work, so you've got no choice. But the problem that they are coming across by all of this feminisation and infantilisation that they've been doing under these ideologue morons of the joint uni party, what they've done is that they've made these kids so feeble that they would literally rather choose nothing than go to this, which I suppose in many ways in that you can turn back and look back and go, okay, maybe that's not such a bad thing. If this was all that they had in mind for doing, which is what this ideology always does, yeah, maybe it's a good idea in that all these kids just end up being neats. They all sit at home with mum and dad and they keep away from this shit. Oh, this is a nice wine. Anyway, it's all really quite pathetic. But the thing about this is that it does beg the question as to what's the deal with the location that was still owned by the MOD, but obviously no longer they're operating on the basis of having a college. It's essentially become kind of like a makeshift barracks. And so can you guess the story that I'm about to tell in terms of what this feminist destroyed college has now become? Take a wild guess. I'll give you a moment. there's a prelude that you need to understand. In November of 2023, we got an article about the Afghans being chucked out of Pakistan, which is something that started in October of 2023. Afghans were being thrown out of Pakistan and they were being dumped here. That kind of thing, though, is not acceptable as a narrative for the Uniparty ideology, because obviously that they've just destroyed the college with the feminist shite, so they can't really then be tolerating us calling them what they actually are for then this particular piece of news coming out. And this is also going to have relevance to next week's episode, because there is a very direct link to what I'm about to show you. Because this, keep in mind, November of 2023, this came out. December of 2023, from the exact same newspaper, The Independent, and we've got apparently these ragtag rejects being rebranded as Hero Afghans. You're familiar with this now. And just to make it just make it look a little bit more official, you know, they're all Afghan heroes and that were in the military. And so they've turned the name of the college back to its original name, essentially. And it's called Garrett's Hay now. So, just for clarity, these two articles are 1 month apart, describing the same people. Same location, same people. If you think back over the back end of last year, which is obviously only just gone, and you had the so-called scandal of how the Tories tried to hide the fact that they'd brought in all these Afghans. That's what this is. And no, they're not Afghan heroes that helped the military. Not in the slightest. They were thrown out of Pakistan for being scumbags. And they just got rebranded. Can you think what came next? Rapist. Because of course. I mean, you wouldn't know it really from the retarded article if you look at the entire thing. Because all you get from these BBC wankers is pushing that old hero bullshit. Oh, it's a barracks that's got the heroes from Afghanistan in it, as opposed to the actual truth, which they really do skip over very quickly, with the fact that the rapist was a 16-year-old. So no, he was no hero of anything. He's just a rapist. Not to worry though, because, you know, it is the standard situation. So he was let go. He was put out on bail and apparently moved to another area, because that's how you deal with Afghan peasant rapists in this country. You don't prosecute them and then send them back. You just move them to a different area to rape somebody else. Yeah. I'm sure that's a real punishment, I suppose, in the minds of these ideologues, because, you know, a rapey third world peasant is going to think that, oh yes, that's an absolute real punishment that I need to be concerned about, where I can rape somebody and then just get moved somewhere else. But not to worry, because it's Labour now, right? It's not those horrible Tories with the exact same ideology as the retards that we've got now. That couldn't possibly be the case, could it? We're not going to have to worry about, you know, the rapey people being let go, because Labour have got a plan. And can you guess what the plan is? First and foremost, you have to keep the lie going of them all being some kind of military heroes, despite being rapey 16-year-olds. And you're going to now have them get to sign a code of conduct. And the rapey behaviour is now apparently sort of rebranded as antisocial behaviour. You have to laugh a little bit, really, don't you? So I'm sure everybody in the immediate area of this particular barracks can all rest and feel confident that the third world peasant rapists will be certainly holding to that charter, just like the government follow their code of conduct. So that's the situation with the college. So I'm not going to go into the next office, which does have direct relevance to this particular outcome, because I think there's the potential for being too lengthy an episode if I was to do that. So there is something else that I just want to refer to now, which is before I go into the slightly more upbeat, in a sense, type of conversations that I want to end on. Because we do have to understand this ideology and the consequences of it. I think most people understand it by now, but you know, it does bear repeating all the time. But we don't have to feel like we're the only ones. And here's a reason why I specifically mentioned that I've got the glass of Portuguese wine. I've not set this up so I can show the video here, but anybody that's been paying attention to actual sources of news rather than mainstream media, you can get to understand that you know, we don't need to be feeling left out in this wider ideological picture around Europe, because you had diversity of gunfire in Lisbon on New Year's Eve, to go along with all of the other third world rampaging idiots all around Europe. But you know, let's all pretend that the EU socialists in Brussels are our friends, so that those leftist retards in the UK that never had the courage of their conviction to move there can keep crying like bitches about Brexit. I mean, this actually does become relevant based off of a conversation that I had, or rather sort of written backwards and forwards, with Rupert Darwall a couple of days ago. If you don't know who Rupert Darwall is, he's the guy that wrote the book Green Tyranny, which is a book that describes the history of the green ideology arm of the lunatics that we have all across Europe at the moment, and the fact that it has its origins in a certain 1930s Germany. Now, the problem I've had with Rupert is that, I mean, I did notice a few years back in that he does seem to be one of these people that have developed Trump derangement syndrome. And he was making comments about how Trump is the enemy of the transatlantic West alliance. To which I pointed out that the things that he was complaining about were directly targeting the ideologues in Europe that we really do need to be pushing back against. And his hatred of Trump has led him to have such complete cognitive dissonance that he completely forgets his own works. I mean, he started off by saying, oh, Trump is the bad man, and then it's the US right that are the bad people. And then as far as the West is concerned, it's only the so-called elites. And so I pointed out to him, so right, so those elites that are destroying all of Europe and bringing in this third world rampaging lunacy to destroy all of our nations. Who's doing that? Whether it be inside Europe itself and then being fed through to the UK, this is something that the European Union is entirely responsible for, and that they are dominated by this ideological mentality which is based predominantly around Germany, France, and then a particular location in Rome. And you want to try to pretend to me that they're not the actual enemy? Obviously, when I pointed out to him and that the circle of him disappearing up his own backside, he backed off, because he's just so wrong, and so many people are so wrong on this. The European Union is a friend to nobody. Never has been. This is a god-awful institution full of ideologues that, quite frankly, they're the ones that need to be deported, along with all of these fucking third world peasants. All of them need to be gone. I would get people like that von der Leyen, put her in a helicopter, fly over Pakistan, find the biggest crowd of Pakistani men that I could, and drop her right in the middle of it and go, tell them all about your feminism, love. Crack on. Let's see how you handle that, because that's the position you've been putting every woman across Europe in. Have some of that. See how well that works out for you. I mean, I would kind of suggest that there is the potential that even third world peasants have got better taste than to touch her. But then we're talking about people that shag donkeys. It's just utter fucking lunacy. And the biggest part to all of this, and I say this to not only to anybody in the UK, but anybody across Europe as well, because I have had this argument in the past where I've been asked if I would tolerate and work with organisations that I know full well are directly involved in promoting this absolute fucking lunacy. And my answer is no. Not then, not now, not ever. I will not work with people or have anything to do with people that are enabling this. Are there consequences to me turning people like that away? Yes. Do I care? No. I've got better principles. None of this shit is going to be on my conscience. I won't be responsible for the destruction of the entirety of Europe, because everybody wants to sit back and go, oh yeah, but. No buts. Have nothing to do with them. I mean, Portugal, I've found bizarre for the longest time anyway, because I mean they have their celebration every year. Was it the Carnation Revolution or what it was, where they got rid of Salazar? And they keep voting in fucking socialists. And we got rid of a dictator when we brought in socialists. What's the fucking difference? Mental. Utterly fucking mental. And it's a shame, because I do like Portugal. And obviously I think they've got the best wine in Europe. Though I'm certainly not going to be one of these people that goes, but my food, my wine. Honestly, if I thought that Portugal could be rid of all of these scumbags and they produce shit wine, I'll take the shit wine any day of the fucking week. It is fucking retarded. But the scenes that we've seen across so many European cities, particularly like in Holland, absolute fucking mayhem. It's got to get to a point where everybody says, right, enough, no more. We're not working with these people. We're sure as hell not voting for these people. We want all of these third world peasants out. We want our countries back. Get rid of your European Union destruction project. Countries like Portugal are perfectly all right as Portugal. It doesn't need fucking France and Germany sticking their nose in. Nobody needs the French and the fucking Germans. The problems that have been caused throughout history by those nations alone, to hell with them. Get rid of all of this crap. I mean, how much shit do you have to put up with before you say, no more, we're not doing this? These people are putting your lives at stake and they just don't care because they're socialists. In whatever form that you want to call that. You want to say, oh, they're socialists, oh, these ones are fascists, these ones are communists. I don't care, they're all socialists. And they're all scum. And they are killing people on levels that have not been seen before. I keep having to point that one out. And that's a piece of narrative that, well, it's not even narrative, it's a piece of fact that too many people forget. They killed hundreds of thousands and hundreds of millions across the world with their green bullshit. That's just purely a socialist ideology. They killed fucking millions with their COVID scam. That's all these people ever do, is just kill people. It's the only thing they know how to do, destroy and kill. When is anybody in any country going to wake up to this fact? While they're typical socialists and sit in their gated areas being protected from everything that they cause, and they're happy to force this shit on you. So I'm not turning around and saying that the European Union is the only bad egg in all of this, because obviously we've got the problem in the UK as well. I wouldn't have just run through that nonsense about that bloody college otherwise. And we can see it for ourselves everywhere. I mean, the stuff that was happening out in the Netherlands and whatever, that was happening in Birmingham as well. These people have got to go. It's as simple as that. They have got to go. It's about time everybody realised that. So anyway, I had to put this bit in there and that because, like I say, the mainstream media is really not making much news about what took place on New Year's Eve at all. And I find it absolutely hysterical as well that they're trying to talk about the Iranians and, oh, the brave Iranians that are fighting back against the regime. You mean the regime which is basically the exact same mentality as the third world peasants that you just brought here? And I guarantee a whole bunch of those regime bastards from Iran, they'll get sent here as well. They'll be brought in with open arms by your failed fucking folk singer, that von der Leyen bitch. The pure idiocy of these people. They are the same thing as the Iranian regime. There is nothing, you couldn't put a piece of paper between them. Anyway. So, in terms of the cumulative, I can increase that one by 16 million for the benchmark year. Obviously, there's going to be costs associated with housing those third world rapists. But I'm assuming that that's going to be done through a different budget. And there's nothing that I can see that's directly related to Garrett's Hay, which is then another problem. If the MOD are still operating that as a barracks, where's the financial reports for it? Again, no accountability. For policies, obviously, because the college no longer exists, I can just put that one in, delist it. But in terms of the money this should then save, I can add it to the cumulative taxpayer saving based off of the benchmark period, but obviously it won't work in terms of later until I find out what the costs are for this Garrett's Hay. There would be a little bit of extra saving, but I mean, again, nominal amounts, but all nominal amounts amount up. So removing it from websites and things like that, it saves on server costs. But then I've added this Garrett's Hay to the review and reform, specifically because the MOD has not listed it correctly and there are no costs associated with that. That's something that is effectively a failure, a standard failure. There's no reason for them to turn around and say, oh, well, this is some kind of I can't remember what the term is now, national security or anything like that, because it's not. I would conduct a full investigation of the site, and I would include going in to find every single one of these rapist Afghani peasants and where they've been moved on to in the country and deport the fucking lot of them. I would then also be making sure that there's prosecutions are done against the very people that enabled this kind of scumbaggery to take place, including those uni-party Tories that brought them here in the first place. That will then also feed into what I'll be doing next week, because, like I say, the narratives that they create and the lying to the public that the media then comply with, there is a route as to exactly how that takes place. I say I'll discuss that next week, because for them to create this narrative calling these people bloody heroes, there has to be accountability here, and that for the fact that this is something that is adding massive insult to the girls that have suffered serious injury. It's not good enough. So let's go to something that's going to end the episode, and that with a little bit of a lighter note, because I've starting a new year and that, and having to do an episode with stuff that is just predominantly awful all over again. It's like, let's have something that gives us a little bit of impetus for the new year. So the other day I was watching an episode, like a pre-recorded episode on the Load Seaters, and they were doing an interview with this guy called Henry Martin, and he was discussing this book that he's written called Lawfare, A Practical Guide. Links are in the description for it. I think there might be a link in the description for the book as well, because this has been the first book. This is going to be the first book that I'll read this year. It hasn't been delivered yet. It's due in the next day or two. But he's a young fella, and I am one of these older farts that, if I was to go back to his age and think, as I do now, that, they're younger people, that maybe they don't quite know enough as to what they're talking about, I'd probably slap myself across the face. because I know damn well at that age and that I very much thought that I knew more than most people, still do. But I basically thought, well, I'll have a listen to what the guy says and see if I think that this book is going to be worth buying, which obviously the fact that I've ordered it, I do. And he said something which really resonated with me because I've been saying it for so long now. And for a young lad to actually say this, I thought, yeah, okay, you've got a grip. Now, this is not to say that I'm not going to agree with everything that he says. That's the same as always. You never agree with everybody and on everything. But there was enough substance there for me to say, yeah, okay, this is a young lad that might be worth paying attention to. And what he said was, when he's seen this Restore Britain group that was put together by Rupert Lowe, and that they were making policy documents, he said that he would rather that they didn't concentrate quite so much on a number of the younger voices that are largely known for their sort of commentariat position on the internet. And he wanted to see a little bit more involvement from people with competence in the specific areas, especially when it comes to things like law. Well, exactly. That's exactly what we should be doing. And it is something that I think that we should be talking about increasingly. And I've said for the longest time that we need to find competent, independent candidates and have them supported by a competent team across a range of different competencies. This all makes absolute sense. It shouldn't actually be a difficult concept for anybody to understand. But for a young lad like this to make that recognition, I think is a really good indication, because we can have all these so-called movements, which we've had particularly right since COVID. Oh, we've got a movement together for this. Oh, you got the freedom movement. Oh, you got that movement. Blah blah blah, and none of them have got a fucking clue what they're doing. They don't organise properly. They don't create policies. They don't understand the problems with the legislation that we have. I mean, that might be one area that I do have some critique of this fella, because for me, a great deal of the problem is that we've got far too much legislation, and I don't think that Parliament should be there as a legislative creating machine. Because if you've got a machine that is dedicated to creating legislation, by default, you're going to reach that point, which we've already reached and exceeded, where you're just eating up more and more freedom. So I think changes like that need to be made. If there is going to be legislation, go right through the books and that back to 1992 in particular, and understand the fact that most of those legislative documents look like they've been written by a bloody 5-year-old. They do not comply with legal principles, and most of them should be taken off the books. If he's got that level of awareness, then maybe okay. But I'll be interested to read this. And maybe at some point when I've finished reading it and that, I'll let you know what I think. If I do, it may be on the other channel. Not sure yet. So I thought that was something of interest that people might want to, because when I did take a look at it, and that, yeah, at that point it had only had 1,700 views. I think it requires a bit more attention than that, considering the amount of people that normally watch the Lotus Eaters. So I thought I'd bring that one up for you as something to, again, give us that impetus for the new year, that we need to be increasing our competence, that if there is going to be a genuine pushback and removing the ideologues, it can't just be done on the basis of, I'll get rid of them and then we'll make up shit as we go along. No, get the competent people together, or get the people to increase their competence, because you're going to need to have a better offer. You're not going to be able to succeed in something in any of the nations, you're not going to be able to succeed if you're turning around and saying, right, we're going to get rid of all of the ideologues and then we'll just kind of juggle around and see what happens afterwards. Because you will fuck up if you do it that way. And like I say, you'll probably only get one chance at doing this. If you don't start making improvements and explaining yourselves properly and getting people involved in things, you'll get thrown out just as quick as you've been managed to get your foot in the door. So I do hope that 2026 sees more competent conversations and more competent people coming forward, basically. And then those conversations can then obviously spread around Europe and that, and you can figure out yourselves how you're going to either destroy Brussels completely and get your own countries back, or God knows how you're going to turn it around. It's beyond me. It's not my problem. I'm not in Europe. I'm in the UK. That'll be down to you lot. On to other things, like, I mean, because it is a new year, then I haven't quite taken the little bit of decorations that I've got. I haven't taken them down yet. I will do. But I suppose it brings into context then as whether anybody's been having the old-fashioned New Year's resolutions. Obviously, mine haven't included stopping smoking or drinking, which I would never do. I haven't done the I've got to go on a diet, because I've been on a 1 meal a day diet for about 3 months now. That's working out quite well, actually. I bought a couple of pair of jeans for myself about 2 years ago, which were the exact same size that I was wearing at the time anyway, but for reasons I'm completely befuddled by. It seems to be the main problem that you get with lots of these things these days. They were too small. Nothing is the exact same jeans that I was wearing, same make, everything, but for some reason, same size but smaller. Go figure. Well, because I have been doing my diet properly and that, I can actually wear them now, so I'm okay as far as the diet's concerned. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going, but I have decided to do a little bit now that I've managed to get a good portion of the bulk off. I'm now going to have to concentrate a little bit more on the exercise side of things, and it's not for any sort of vanity project or anything like that. It's much more practical, because going back a few years now and that, I've been talking about doing your own gardens and growing your own food and things like that. Well, last year I made good inroads in the garden. Considering I'm not a gardener by yet, I don't know what I'm doing in the slightest. But I made some really good inroads. It still looks like a bloody disaster area, but it's getting where I need it to be, where I'm hoping to be able to get it fully functioning this year. And so I need to do a bit of exercise and that, so I've got the stamina to be able to do it. Because, I mean, the biggest problem I get is that with the soil in particular, I'm sieving every single part of the soil to get all of the stones and the crap and the weeds and all that sort of stuff out. And I'd made one bed ready for testing, I suppose, effectively. And I did plant a couple of things late in the summer, and just sieving out the crap of the soil really has had a big impact. The growth inside this bed is absolutely phenomenal. So I want to be able to do that and finish off the garden and finish off doing all of the different beds. And so, like I said, I need the stamina to be able to do that. So it sounds a silly thing and that, but once you start doing it, especially when you get to my age and you're having to bend over to sieve all this dirt and everything, that plays havoc with your back and your arms and everything. So I need to just sort of build up a bit of an ability to be able to spend more than 30 minutes doing it. So that's a kind of a New Year's resolution for me. I did actually start yesterday, so not really done much today though, and that because I hurt from doing it yesterday. So bit by bit, We'll get there. Oh, I've also got the ongoing problems with the DVLA because, like I say, I am not going to be compliant with any one of these bastards anymore. But the one thing I have had to do, I've got myself a new shock absorber that's needed for my car. So I've got to have that fitted. I'm probably going to have that fitted by Monday, I think. And then the argument proper begins once again with the DVLA. So I think I mentioned over Christmas and that the bastards have tried to send me a penalty notice. Don't care. Not paying it. It's their fault. And they need to explain to me. They need to give me the logic. And again, this falls back into the competence side of things. How do you make a competent argument against these people? So, I mean, for one example, I've seen, again, you always get these comments that keep being raised when these discussions take place as to how is it that people could turn around and say, well, right, we can hit them in the pocket by not paying the taxes. Now, obviously, there's a range of these taxes that you can get into dispute with. That can be like your council tax, and like I said, with the DVLA, I can just say I dispute this. You can give me some logic to this. But the main argument that comes up is you can't do anything about employment tax in particular because it's taken at source. I have explained this one before, so I'll do it again. The way that you can prevent them from doing it at source is that you literally just sack everybody. You have no employees. Everybody's a contractor. And then you can do this because you've got the IR 35, whatever it is, that if you're contracted to the same company for more than 2 years, you then have to be employed by them. Well, you literally just get everybody to comprehensively just do the circular thing. I said, oh yeah, we're coming up to the 2 years. All right, now that company's shut down. We've opened up another one now, and now we're contracted via that company. Play them at their own game. And what you will find as a result of that as well, and that is for the main organisation that does that, your cost of employment will go down. Because as a result of paying them on a contract basis, which then means that their tax, insurance and everything like that, that's their liability, that's up to them then to take care of it. And whereby they then can ensure that their expenses are such that any tax obligations on their part are very greatly reduced. But you're no longer responsible for those fees. You're not responsible for that at source contribution. You're no longer responsible for that increased insurance. You're no longer responsible for the health packages. You're not responsible for any of these so-called company holiday things, or you're not responsible for anything. So you could actually pay your employees more and it costs you less. And then your at source scenario problem goes away, doesn't it? And everybody works out the best way. We just constantly work around whatever bullshit laws that they want to try to create or anything that they're trying to do to be able to steal more and more money from us, and we just keep taking it away from them. Because let's face it, we all know that the tax laws are created in conjunction with the Big Four. The Big Four accounting firms, and those accounting firms basically provide the legislation and the guidelines and all this type of thing. They provide the tax code, which then enables them to inform their clients how to work around it. We just do the same thing as they do. There's ways and means of doing things. But the obligation then once you've removed the financial destruction that government wants to, and the force that government wants to try to apply on you, well, then you need to have an answer to that as well, don't you? If they don't have any money, you don't complain about the roads. You do the roads yourselves. You all get together and you go, right, this is what's required. Everybody contributes a certain amount of money. We'll do it ourselves. I know how bloody hard that can be. And I know there was a propaganda program that was put out a few years, well, more than a few years back now, where they tried to do this experiment of one street being able to operate without the tax system. And everybody found it really difficult, conveniently. It's, oh, you don't want to do that. We're the only ones that can do that for you. Bullshit. There's ways and means if you've got the competent people to lead the way with it. So I think if this year can be something whereby, let me just move off of this page a minute. I think if this year can be one where people actually do start to really understand the competence, how accountability can be a part of the discourse, if making the lives of those bastards, those third world raping peasants, make their lives an absolute fucking misery. I'm particularly talking about you football lads out there now, because you are the big crowds. I know there's a lot of the stuff in that about these fellas that are going out to Calais and preventing the boats and all this sort of stuff. I'm a little bit suspicious of that. I have seen that sort of stuff before. Careful what you put your name to. And obviously, when they say that they've been stopping the boats and all this sort of stuff and that, well, quite clearly they haven't. I mean, I'm not going to say people shouldn't do that. I'm just have a little bit of caution. There are these methods that are employed in that in order to be able to get people's names, to investigate them and all this sort of stuff. But if the football lads in particular and that, you start really looking after your areas, never mind fighting each other, look after your areas. Like I say, make sure that those third world rapists know, not in my backyard, mate. It's not happening in my backyard. And if more and more of us turn around and say, I will not play an active role in any organisation that is pushing this lunacy upon us, this mass murderous ideology upon us, the more of us that walk away from that and start creating our own organisations and only dealing with ourselves, I say never have anything to do with a government procurement system. The more of us that do that, the better chance that we've got. Push the accountability side of things though. You can do two things simultaneously. You can look towards something that is ensuring that you've got a safe area. You can ensure that you're being able to develop an economy that works for yourselves. But you can also completely hold them to account. You can work on both sides of that scale. And keeping your community safe, and that is probably going to be top of the list. You do not tolerate these third world peasants anymore. Or any leftists. Because they should all be deported as well. You want to be a socialist? You want to be a communist? Right, you lot fuck off to China. You lot fuck off to Venezuela. All of you Brexit whining bitches. Let's find the most communist fucking... Actually, stick them in Germany. Stick them in Germany. Let them have their ideology back. And we'll send King Charles with him. So, I don't know if that actually qualifies as a happier ending. Probably not. But yeah, I mean, hopefully things do. I mean, I do think that the year is going to be pretty fucking awful, if I'm honest. But it'll be what we make of it. If we can start to see some progress, if we can start to see people really knowing what to do, really pushing back, really not tolerating any of this crap anymore, the bigger we get, the closer we get to taking things back. I think that's a positive enough message. So on that basis, I'll be continuing the subjects that helped to create that narrative of claiming that they're all Afghan heroes, because then they weren't. They were just thrown out of Pakistan because when Pakistan, a place like Pakistan, when they're so bad, even the Pakistanis don't want them. The fuck. I'll be continuing that little bit of relevant conversation in next week's episode. So that's the first one for the year done. Happy New Year again, for what it's worth. And take care. I'll see you next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.